I'm back and we're ready to quilt the Simply Stripes quilt. So I had some different thoughts. I really didn't want to go out and buy a Kona for this backing just yet. I'm still trying to work my way through my stash. So a couple things I looked at were the purple diamonds from one of the previous quilts, the dinosaur one. I did that on the back and it had the little triangles around the outside. It paired really well with that shade of purple. This shade of purple's just a little bit off, so I didn't quite want to do that. I had a gray polka dot flannel that I thought could work, but I decided to save that for another quilt. And so my third option is taking it back to the black and white photo quilt and using this as my backing. So using that film strip for my backing, I think it'll tie in really well because this is kind of a good amount of white and this will just kind of be fun on the back. And I'll probably see about getting a Kona for the binding because then that'll be a smaller piece that I have to buy versus buying 3 yards and having a big chunk at the bottom left over and not really helping deplete my stash. So that's gonna be my plan. I'll get this all pieced together. So that'll go on the back. I'll quilt it all up. I think I'm just gonna do a kind of loopy thing to kind of go with this kind of loopy stuff and then take a look at the binding. I can really pull any of these colors for the binding. Like if I can't remember exactly which color this is, I can always pull in one of these purples or the hot pink. I might even have those in my stash. Or maybe I'll see if I have multiple of those and make a scrappy binding. I don't know, we'll see. So I'm gonna go piece this up and then we'll come back and we'll load it up on the long arm. So now we're all basted in, but I got real close to the edge with my measurements over here. I kind of eyeballed it thinking, oh, that'll be enough, and then I added an extra inch, but like at the start here, it's it's pretty close. We gained some excess over here. I don't know what happened there, but this side over here seems to be doing pretty okay, so as long as that doesn't shift too much away, we should be fine. So I'm going to get this all situated, stitch out my first zone, and hope for the best. So I thought I was going to go for a loopy all over, like a cakewalk one I've done before. Something about this Cool Beans square meander just felt right with this. So we've got square blocks, square meander, all sorts of square fun. So I'm going to get this ready and we're going to go on to the next zone.
And we've made it to the bottom. This was actually a Frankenstein batting, and it's probably been my most successful one to date. It was wide enough, and it stayed long enough without being super excessively long. So I'm going to trim this off and just toss that, because that's not even going to be big enough to do any of our wedding favors with. So I'm going to get this off the frame, and then we're going to bind this up. So I took my quilt into the shop, and I managed to find the same fabric for my binding. So I'm going to get these strips all cut up. We're going to sew the binding on, and then this quilt's going to be done.
So we're wrapping up Simply Strips from the 3 Yard Favorites book, and this one might be one of my favorites so far. I think the colors, sure this isn't a clear picture, the colors are all really nicely worked well together with the purple and the bright colored cameras and the little aqua-y. I think deep jade is the Kona color that it is. But it all really looks really well, and I'm quite happy with it. This quilt finished about 45 by 61, so as usual, a good lap size. And I added that extra. I had to go back and buy more Kona for the binding to get good size binding. I have since experienced making the economy binding, so in the future, I may just go ahead and do that. It's not awful, but it's not great at the same time. So it's not my favorite thing, but should I want to really dive into this whole stash busting concept, I've at least figured out how to do the economy binding on a different project for work. So let me hold this up a little bit and give you a little bit of a peek, and then get your quilt reveal. So here's a little look at the triple border situation on this one. They all kind of pop into each other. I do like the really skinny camera stripe here in contrast to having 3 that are all the same size. So I do like that with a triple border. Here's a look at the backing. So I use that film strip backing, and it looks really good with that just pop of color right there with the binding. My machine binding per usual. And I'm really glad I went with this kind of modern meander kind of pantograph. It just, I don't know, it just worked really well. It's one of my favorites. It's called Cool Beans from Urban Elements. So if you are looking for a pantograph that's really user-friendly, whether it is computerized or hand-guided, this one, because it's squares with rounded corners, you don't have to worry about getting those points, which is one of my favorite things to not have to worry about, is having pointy corners. So super 2 thumbs up to that. And I think this one might be one that I would repeat in the future with a good like tossed print, maybe to get a little less streamlined with my cameras going in obvious directions. But all in all, it is a good little quilt here. So let's do the quilt drop and be on to seeing the final pictures.